Welcome to the IT Security One-to-One Summit podcast series. Listen to industry insiders discuss the most critical issues in IT security. Featured on this episode, David Cass, the Global Chief Information Security Officer for Cloud and SaaS Operations, IBM, talks with Arlette Hart, Chief Information Security Officer, FBI. You are listening to the IT Security One-to-One Summit podcast series.
Hello, my name's David Cass. I'm the Global Chief Information Security Officer for IBM's Cloud and SaaS Operations. I have the great pleasure of being joined today by Arlette Hart, who is the Chief Information Security Officer for the FBI. So welcome, Arlette.
Thank you very much. It's glad to be here.
So I really enjoyed your discussion earlier this morning, so I think we could build, our broader audience would really benefit from the value of that discussion. Arlette was talking about avoiding the big one, which is really how do you deal with breaches and incident response when they occur. And I really enjoyed where you started talking about how do you really have to face these challenges head on.
Right. Thank you very much. So I think the big important parts is you want to catch your breach as early as possible because containment is critical to this effort. The longer your breach goes on, the worse it's going to get, almost without a doubt, unless you just don't have anybody worth breaching you. But making sure that you have an incident response plan in place, that you know who it is that you need to talk to, you have your escalation procedures, you know when you need to take what steps, and have that documented ahead of time. Make sure that your relationships are documented ahead of time. Your CEO and your board, if you're a public corporation, need to know that incident response is a potential issue that you are likely to get at some level. And they're going to hear about it at some level, hopefully not at a level that's catastrophic for your industry, but you do have to make sure that you have the preparation in place ahead of time. And by the way, that does also include making sure that you know when you're going to go to law enforcement and what you're going to be able to give to law enforcement, and planning that ahead of time too.
Yeah, no, as a practicing CISO, I totally agree with you. Preparation is key because, again, when it is the 11th hour, that's the last time that you want to actually be trying to learn things for the first time. So, preparation is really being essential, and especially with, not a day goes by where you don't see some kind of event in the news. So it's really, you want to make sure that you're well prepared ahead of time. So, that being said, as, we see more and more, breaches, incidents coming, technology is evolving so fast. So what do you see as the impact of emerging technology on today's environment, especially being a Chief Information Security Officer?
Well, it has a significant disruptive impact. People want to do things from wherever they are at any given point in time. And from an enterprise perspective, every enterprise that's more than 4 years old is going to have an infrastructure that is much older than the emerging technologies. If you have any age on you at all, you've got some mainframe capabilities that you're sitting there looking at. And putting a mainframe capability into the cloud is like taking your inside couch and sticking it on the outside on your patio and calling it lawn furniture. It's like you just haven't secured it properly. Now you have junk instead, and you're giving it to somebody else, and you're ruining what you have. So you have to transfer these things with appropriate and intentional care. So make sure that you have protections in place. Make sure that when data is moving outside into a different environment, you actually know who it is that's protecting that environment, know how they're protecting it, and that you have some assurance that your data has appropriate technology around it to make sure people can't just get it ad hoc. You've developed a lot of these capabilities to live in your premises. So you have firewalls on your edge. You have intrusion detection and other security capabilities at your edge. And when you put the things in place in the first place, you were counting on those. When you move something to the cloud, make sure that you know, again, how those pieces are being protected to your environment. So security is both to and from somebody, right? So when you are securing a thing, you are securing it to the people who are authorized to have it and securing it from everybody else. So when you go into the cloud or whatever hybrid approach you're taking, make sure that you have the right visibility into the security of the infrastructure, not only from your general user and your end user perspective, but also from your privileged user perspective.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And having been a practitioner in the cloud for the past 5+ years, I've been really spending a lot of time on how to do shared responsibility to make sure that we jointly understand what I'm responsible for, what you may be responsible for, and there's clear delineations there. And not only delineations, but how do we interlock to make sure that we're communicating well with each other. And again, part of that looks at, kind of based on what you're talking about, as a legacy technology to, if you're considering moving things, you need to look at it from that risk point of view. Is it appropriate appropriate to be moving it, or there are things that need to be re-architected and redone prior to taking that step. So really, that's a good segue into my next question for you, is really, what are some of the questions to ask when you're assessing your environment?
Questions to ask: who owns what, who can get what, where is it living, what really is the critical data that you have? This is a hard question. The what is the critical data you have is a hard question, because everybody looks at that and says, well, I don't know where my critical data is. Well, you might not know where all of it is, but you know where a lot of it is. You might not know where it isn't, but you definitely know where it is. So looking at your critical data that you know of and putting protections around that, things like network segmentation, they're coming leaps and bounds. And so some of those security capabilities are really available in a way that they weren't available before. So starting to take advantage of those, and some of those are really productivity improvements too. So it's not just the security side of it, but also the productivity side, and those can start to work together to create an overall improvement in the infrastructure.
Yeah, that's great. And I know, when you were speaking earlier, we had talked about, insider threat is huge these days, but I really liked your point about, the inadvertent insider. Can you elaborate a little more on that?
Right. So inadvertent insider is the person who is really trying to drive mission. These are people who have the best intentions, or at least they don't pay attention. Either they don't pay attention to security, or they think, well, this is just going to be here for a little while. And so we're just doing this to make sure that the mission itself can happen appropriately. And they just don't have the same perspective on it that you as a security practitioner would have. So they open a port, or they accept a change, or they put this in place just for a little while and forget to undo it. That's kind of why things like privileged management are really important. Privileged user management are really important. And also things like phishing. So-and-so gets an email that looks like it's important, so they click on it. And especially if it's a well-crafted phishing expedition, you really have to make sure that people understand that they are a part of the overall infrastructure and the security infrastructure. And this is a team sport. We're all in this together. We have to fight this fight together. And everybody is a part of the solution.
I definitely agree with that approach. And I think the other big challenge is there are so many technology solutions out there. As everything gets overlaid on top of the technology, what are your thoughts on the amount of security technology that's available?
There's a lot of security technology available. There are a lot of point solutions. There are a lot of things that tell you that they're going to be the magic solution to everything, and they're going to solve all the problems of the world. And again, good people with good intentions trying to do important things, they tend to conflict with each other. They tend to stomp on each other a bit. I really would like them to start playing well together and start working from a security perspective as an integrated whole, as opposed to fighting each other and each trying to solve every problem from soup to nuts. I understand why they're not, but at the same time, I think if we don't get down that path, we're not going to be able to start really addressing the hard problems in this area. And to me, basic hygiene is important. Basic control of privileged users is important. Getting the patching and configuration management and audit controls and understanding of what's on your network and where your network is. Those are things that are critical to any infrastructure and the basic hygiene of any infrastructure. But they're not sufficient to start really addressing the hard problems. The intentional insider threat and the advanced persistent threat. Those are hard problems that look different than the basic problems that are exploiting so many people today. We shouldn't be having to fight with ransomware. We should have pieces in place that can really just address that off the top of our heads, instead of having to work hard to address that.
Oh, thank you. And I know we're coming up on, I guess, our time limit there, but from your point of view, what are the best ways to engage with law enforcement, especially, before something happens? So
you can call your local FBI office. And absolutely, I encourage everybody to do that. Get to know who your agents are in the FBI office. The other is to join InfraGard. InfraGard is the FBI's major outreach for cybersecurity. And joining that is a critical piece to making sure that we as an industry, as a culture, as a society, can really go down the path of improving our cybersecurity. It's got a lot of tools in there and a lot of connections in there that can improve how the public and the FBI work together to improve the overall infrastructure and the overall security. Yeah, that's great. Arlette, thank you so much for sharing your insights with me today, and thank you again for your presentation this morning. Thank you very much. It was great.
Thanks for listening to the IT Security One-to-One Summit podcast series. To listen to other podcasts or for more information on the IT Security One-to-One Summit, visit us at one2onesummits.com/ITSec. That's ONE2ONE summits.com/ITSEC.